Thank you for watching this weekly storm observation forecast for the central U.S. This is week 2, covering the period March 20th through the 26th. If you're new to the channel, SKYDRAMA is run by myself, Andrew Pritchard. SKYDRAMA is just the umbrella name that all of my severe weather content lives under. I'm a meteorologist and storm chaser born and raised in the American Midwest. My day job is senior meteorologist for Nutrient Ag Solutions, where my focus is on forecasting short-term, high-impact weather events and their impact to agriculture in the U.S. and Canada. On busy severe weather days at home in central Illinois, I provide live severe weather coverage for WILL AM 580, the public broadcasting station for the University of Illinois in my hometown, Champaign-Urbana. Marrying a day job that has me spending each day with my nose in hazardous weather forecasting with a couple of decades of storm chasing experience doesn't mean I know everything there is to know about severe weather forecasting. But it has allowed me to acquire a growing mental glossary of weather patterns to avoid or to potentially take a risk on. So while it is true that these videos will focus on forecasting severe weather and tornadoes, I'm hoping to give it a bit of a twist and, as the title says, talk about the prospects for observing severe thunderstorms and tornadoes in the central U.S. over the coming week based on what we know about the different flavors of severe weather environments we see throughout the season across Tornado Alley, including some of the storm types and storm sites you might expect to see. You've maybe heard the analogy by now comparing tornado watches and tornado warnings to cupcakes. A tornado watch is your cupcake ingredients, and a tornado warning is the finished cupcake in your hand, right? Well, not all cupcakes are created equal, and that's true for severe thunderstorms and tornadoes too. So again, by nature, these will be weekly severe weather outlook videos, but rather than be a pure severe weather outlook, I'm hoping to talk about some of the unique opportunities for observing different storm types and your prospects for capturing some sky drama over the next week or so. I'd like to keep it from getting too serious, so let's just have some fun on Friday nights over the next few months, alright? The plan is to upload these videos every Friday night at 7 p.m. through the middle of June or so. Before we get going, a quick disclaimer to say that storm chasing is inherently full of risks and you shouldn't try it without first going out with someone more experienced. Being in the physical path of damaging weather, including tornadoes, requires a bit of a sixth sense about storm behavior that doesn't come natural to anyone. Anyone who goes out looking for storms based on anything in this video is doing so under their own volition. Cool? Finally, while my work for Nutrient does center on forecasting hazardous weather, this is just something fun I want to do on the side and is not directly related to my work there. Alright, boring part done, let's talk weather. This forecast is being powered now by 3 Floyd's Barbarian Haze IPA. Hope you got something cold to sip on here this Friday evening. We've got quiet weather across the US. We're going to start out with the satellite picture here in just a moment. Alright, here we go. The satellite picture here as the sun starts going down across the United States, across the lower 48 at the very least. The central United States is quiet. We've got a big area of high pressure settling into the midsection of the country. We've got our departing storm system, the one that brought all the severe weather, the activity over the last 48 to 72 hours. I'll let you know right now. Hear this noise? Big rumble. Hear a big bang in a second. That's the sump pump that's running here alongside me, and that is going to be interrupting us as the video goes on. That is just going to be a fact of life here because we'll go ahead and take a look at total precipitation over the last 7 days. And again, we had one system kind of swing through early in the week, the second one that came through midweek, and a lot of the region here, a lot of the central U.S. here, picking up anywhere from 2-4 inches, some areas here 4 to 6 inches where you see the yellow shading there. So a very active week. We're going to see a quiet weekend with that area of high pressure across the midsection of the country. A lot of the central U.S. going to be seeing a lot of sunshine. We saw a lot of sunshine today. Friday, we'll see a lot of that tomorrow and Saturday as well. We'll start to see some precipitation creep back into the northern plains here, into the upper Midwest as we get into late Sunday and Monday. And then it's as we get into the middle part of next week, I think that we'll finally be able to talk about an increasing risk for some strong to severe storms, again from the southern plains into the mid-south, the southeastern U.S., and then potentially the Ohio River Valley as well. So here's what we've got as we head into the day today, or this evening. Again, high pressure across the midsection of the country. Same thing here as we get into Saturday, and then on Sunday that front starts to sweep into the midsection of the country. So Sunday night we'll have a cold front kind of stretching from the upper Midwest, states of Minnesota and Wisconsin, down into the high plains region here. An area of low pressure beginning to take shape across the Panhandle region, and that is going to set the stage for potentially a few thunderstorms, maybe even a few severe storms as we get into the later period on Monday afternoon and evening. We'll talk about that in a moment, but looking at the annual count here for tornado reports, and again, 2021, the red line down here at the bottom, been kind of hugging the baseline there slow start to the season here, but starting to tip upward over the last week or so. Again, a series of severe weather events as we went through last weekend up through about Wednesday and Thursday of this past week. So severe weather season is officially underway, I would say, across the central United States. And again, I think we're looking at another active week next week. So here are the regions that I'm outlining here, kind of a rough outlook. I thought that last video was kind of cool, kind of a first try here. It was a little bit long, I think, and then I also wish that I was a little more formal with some of the areas that I'm watching here. So as we get into Monday, that first system starts to sneak through. I think we'll be looking at a couple of scattered storms, maybe a late in the day supercell risk across the dry line, across western Oklahoma down into kind of west central Texas on Monday. Again, looking at this region right here, Monday afternoon. Tuesday, the first wave starts to lift into the Ohio River Valley. I think Tuesday afternoon and evening, we're going to see a chance for some scattered storms and maybe a marginal supercell risk here across the state of Illinois as we get into Tuesday afternoon and evening. As we get into Wednesday, we see a second wave come around the base. We're going to have, what's going to happen here is we'll have this Monday risk, and then we have the Tuesday risk. This system lifts off to the north and to the east, but it leaves a cold front kind of lingering back here across portions of the southern plains into the Ohio River Valley. So then the second wave comes in kind of midweek. And then as we get into Wednesday afternoon, we're going to be looking at a severe weather risk here across portions of North Texas. And then as we get into Thursday, I think, potentially looking at another fairly widespread high-end severe weather risk across Dixie Alley, across the Ohio River Valley, kind of the Mid-South, getting into the Gulf Coast states. So we'll take a look at some of the weather data to back that up. But here's kind of my early regions to watch, and again, kind of just covering the entire week as a whole. We're going to be talking about the southern plains and the southern U.S. a whole lot over the next coming week, I do believe. All right, let's start with 500 millibar jet stream winds. We're looking at the European, the 12Z run that came out here Friday morning. And again, a big ridge of high pressure across the central United States. Our departing trough here is going to be quiet for the next few days. So as we head through Friday, the rest of the day today into tonight, getting into Saturday. I don't know why this is lagging so much here. Let's get this to click ahead. Come on, guys. There we go. All right, so we're heading into Saturday now. Still ridged out across the central United States. Again, as we get into Sunday, we're going to start to see some precipitation beginning to fall across the northern plains. That'll work its way down into the high plains here, the high central plains, as we get into Sunday night. Here's our next player. This is the next one that's going to bring a severe weather risk to the central United States, really the southern plains, as we get into Monday. So here's Monday morning. This is about 7 a.m. This is mid-morning, getting into noon on Monday, and then Monday afternoon. So this wave comes swinging through out of New Mexico, kind of through Texas, right in through the Red River region. So I do expect us to, get Lee cyclogenesis here across the Panhandle. I should have the jet stream, or the dry line, beginning to firm up here across, again, western Oklahoma, down into kind of west central Texas. Take a look at what kind of dew points we have here, because the front that's moving through right now is hatched with the system that brought the Wednesday severe weather outbreak in the south, the Thursday severe weather event in the Carolinas. That one has dragged a cold front kind of down a little bit further across the Gulf than the one about a week ago. So let's go ahead. This is what we're looking at about 6 p.m. on Sunday evening, 7 p.m. on, Monday evening, again, as we're looking for that severe weather risk, probably, again, right along the dry line here. Looks like we'll get dew points at least in the upper 50s to maybe the low 60s, perhaps mid 60s, as you get into south central Texas. So certainly with that upper level support, I think we'll be looking at a severe weather risk right along the dry line here as we get into Monday afternoon and evening. I keep wanting to call it Sunday. We'll deal with it, but certainly looking at having some instability here. We're going to have a pretty potent wave. Let's check out the low level jet, see what we're working at here, not the surface winds. Let's go down to 850 millibars. Should have the low level jet cranking right there. We certainly do. And again, should be looking at a surface low, somewhere around the Kansas and Oklahoma border. So a pretty classic, opportunity here for, again, maybe the moisture is a little bit borderline. This looks pretty decent to me at this point. I think that we're probably looking at a couple of isolated supercells late in the day as we get into Monday afternoon and evening. And certainly, the European model reflecting that. We can even jump into the central region here and kind of amplify that just a little bit. But looking at hourly precipitation, looks like maybe having a few dry line storms initiate here as we get into Monday afternoon, Monday evening, and then probably looking at a severe weather risk that continues at least into the early overnight here across eastern portions of Oklahoma into North Texas. So, Monday, maybe looking at, a slight risk day here across Oklahoma and Texas. Would not be surprised to see a few pretty supercells along the dry line as we get into Monday afternoon, Monday evening across, again, western portions of Oklahoma into west central Texas. We'll go ahead and continue on because I want to talk about the risk then as we get into Tuesday. I'm going to go ahead and bring the upper level winds back up here, 500 millibars. Again, we're going to watch this wave come swinging through the Red River region, and then it really lifts. We've got a ridge upstream. This wave becomes negatively tilted, swings into the Ohio River Valley as we get into Tuesday. So this is now noon on Tuesday, getting into Tuesday afternoon. Go ahead and take a look at the dew points here as we get into Tuesday afternoon. It's going to be a little bit borderline here. We're talking about dew points probably in the low to mid 50s. So that can do a couple things. One, it's going to really cut into the tornado risk, but two, a pretty low moisture event here when we've still got really cold upper level temperatures, so we still end up with some instability, certainly enough to initiate some thunderstorms along that front. You can end up with some photogenic convection here as you get those low relative humidity values. Cameron Nixon, I'm going to be referencing him a lot here in these videos, I believe, because he's so good at understanding storm types, storm appearance, just by looking at those soundings and telling you about the environment there. You can really learn about the types of storms that that you expect to see. And, to a lesser extent, that's what I'm trying to do with these videos here. I certainly would believe that I pale in comparison with Cameron being able to pick out these environments and tell you exactly what storm type you're looking at. But this is an event here Tuesday where I'm starting to kind of hone in on the potential for some photogenic storms and maybe some borderline supercell structure across the state of Illinois here as we get a Tuesday afternoon and evening. And of course, living in east central Illinois here and not having got out to observe any thunderstorms yet this year, I'll be watching that one very closely. But again, borderline situation here. We're talking about some low instability as we get to Tuesday afternoon and evening. There's probably going to be a severe weather risk down here as well, across East Texas, getting into Louisiana and Mississippi. But, it is what it is down there. I'm certainly not going to be headed down there. And I think that if there's going to be a chance for observing some severe storms here in any kind of easy fashion, in any kind of photogenic fashion, it's probably going to be right here across the state of Illinois as we get into Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening. So let's take a look at the surface winds. We've got our surface low beginning to crank up and swing through the state of Iowa. So we'll have a boundary here that I believe storms would initiate on as we get into Tuesday, probably mid-afternoon. You're looking at southeasterly flow out ahead of the front. You've got the front coming in here with southwesterly flow. So you've got a bit of an initiating boundary here, a convergence boundary. And again, you can see that when we look at the dew points, it was fairly obvious there, but right along that line there, you see the drier air wrapping around this area of low pressure. We'll take a look at the upper level winds that go along with this, back to 500. Again, you've got the wave kind of swinging through here. You're right in the kind of the left exit region across central Illinois, so you've got some ascent there. We look at 700, got a pretty good wave there. The wave really washes out at 500 millibars here because it's got a kind of a funky interaction between a couple other players in the neighborhood. But when we look at 850, we've got a good low-level jet cranking with this one. We're talking about 850 millibar winds of 35 to 45 knots out ahead of that area of low pressure. So really, the wind fields are there to support a supercell structure and long-lived severe convection. I think the limiting ingredient here is clearly the moisture when we're talking about dew points in the low to middle 50s. But when we talk about this event, we've got good agreement between the European and the GFS model. We can take a look here. This is 4 p.m. You're looking at dew points from the Euro. Let's go ahead and flip it over to the GFS, and you don't see a big change there. We've still got the front maybe sped up just a little bit from the GFS. Let's see, that's the 12, or this is the 18Z, so I have not actually seen this one yet. Let's see what it's got for instability. We were kind of borderline earlier, so there you see it. We've got you got some instability to work with, enough here when you've got such a dynamic storm system and a good initiating boundary with that front kicking in here, that I do think you kick off, some robust convection in this environment. Cold upper level temperatures, just enough moisture, everything else there, the upper level support to kind of sustain these storms. So I'm kind of going out on a limb, I guess, here. I don't think it's going to be a high-end event. I don't even know that the tornado risk is really there, but I think that maybe we're observing some photogenic storms and a borderline supercell potential here across the state of Illinois on Tuesday. So now let's move on. Let's talk about Wednesday. And to do that, I'm going to kind of just, let's flip over to moisture here, because I think this will show up pretty well. So here comes Monday and Tuesday's event. Monday I expect some scattered severe in Oklahoma and Tuesday. On Tuesday, I expect scattered severe across probably the state of Illinois, maybe Missouri, maybe Iowa in play there as well, perhaps even portions of Kentucky and Tennessee. We'll head into Tuesday night. You're going to watch a cold front, or the cold front, kind of stall out right here across the lower Mississippi Valley. So we're getting into Wednesday morning now. You're starting to see moisture drawn back northward across the state of Texas. So midnight Wednesday, sunrise on Wednesday now. Here comes midday Wednesday, and now getting into Wednesday afternoon. We've got the dry line now. I'm going to flip it back over to the European model. I didn't realize I was still clicking with the GFS. Same difference though. We've got the front that kind of stalls out here, and then what happens is we get our second wave comes swinging in here across, really across the southern U.S., getting into northern Mexico. Let's flip it over to 500 millibars, see where that wave is. Should be screaming in. There it is. Digging in across northern Mexico, and then we've got kind of the lead portion of that wave right now moving across East Texas, eastern Oklahoma. So with that front kind of lingering back here across the lower Mississippi Valley, our next wave swinging in, we would expect to see cyclogenesis along that stationary front, probably in the Red River region, as we get into Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. And this is where we'll be looking at another severe weather risk then across the southern U.S., across Oklahoma, Texas, maybe even into Arkansas and Louisiana. So where's our instability? Right here, across East Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana. That's where the upper level support is. That's on the lead edge of our wave here, kind of the exit region of our trough. We should expect to see a surface low developing there as well. Let's flip over to surface winds. It's kind of iffy. This is a strong cold front coming in on the backside, so this is not the best look, for supercells and that sort of convection here. So this is probably a good severe weather day along that front, but that's going to be some strong convergence. That's not, the cyclogenesis that you'd want to see here, and it's not going to set up favorable wind fields for supercells and tornadoes here with something like that. We can take a look at the GFS, see if it's any more optimistic with that, or if we've still got the big cold front. See, here's some big differences, and that's a factor as we head into next week as well. We've got some uncertainty, especially with this second wave that comes in on Wednesday and Thursday. So we can look at the ensembles and help kind of narrow it down a little bit. But Wednesday, this a disorganized severe weather risk here across Oklahoma, Texas, getting into Arkansas and Louisiana. It doesn't look all that chaseable to me right now. I think that when we get there, we're probably looking at a slight risk somewhere across this region. We're probably talking about severe storms with that wave coming in, but really low confidence here on how well defined this event is going to be as we get into Wednesday, as it's kind of, this wave swinging in here. I think Thursday is the day that we're probably talking about a more widespread severe weather risk. So let's go ahead, let's click on ahead into Thursday and see what we're looking at. So let's bring up, how do we want to do it? Let's go to upper level winds here. Let's look at 500 millibars once again. So here's our Wednesday wave. This is 7 p.m. Wednesday. Maybe we're looking at a severe weather risk somewhere here across, East Oklahoma, East Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana. This wave lifts then and gets into the mid-south, the Ohio River Valley, and the southeastern U.S. as we get into Thursday. So right now, this event has taken on a look that looks rather frightening at times, and it's taken on a look that looks rather progressive and quick, maybe kind of a squall line type event. I think Thursday we are probably looking at a severe weather risk that maybe borders on high end across the Ohio River Valley, down into Kentucky and Tennessee. Mississippi, Alabama, maybe even into Georgia. But we're going to have to watch this one as far as how it actually evolves, how quick it pushes through here. You take a look at the GFS, we got big differences. So this is the exact same time here, 7 p.m. on Thursday. The GFS way slower with that wave, and what would be a more favorable solution for an organized severe weather event. So this is what we've got as far as differences. Let's see what that means down at the lower levels. So 850 millibars. As we get into Thursday evening, right now the low-level jet way out here, way east, so we're talking about a favorable environment from Georgia up to Ohio Thursday evening. If we flip it over to the GFS, we're talking much further west. We'll be talking about that severe weather threat, much more of a Dixie Alley type event here on Thursday afternoon and evening. So what I want to do here is let's look at the precipitation forecast from each model real quick, but then I want to jump into some ensemble differences here as we get through the middle part of next week, which is when I think that severe weather threat is going to be maximized across the central U.S. So real quick, let's flip it back to the European model. And let's bring it back to, why not bring it all the way back to the current time, Friday. Not midnight, but here we go through the middle of the night. Friday, dry and quiet across the central U.S. A lot of sunshine, mild temperatures. This is Saturday evening, now getting into midnight Saturday, now Sunday morning. This is Sunday afternoon and then Sunday night. Remember, Dakotas, upper Midwest, you get some light precipitation going as we get into the later part of the day on Sunday. I need to take a sip. I just realized I'm getting, dehydrated here with all this talking. And not enough IPA making its way into my system. Let's take it through Monday. Let's see. This is when we're talking about isolated supercells across Oklahoma and Texas. Maybe a borderline tornado risk. Here we go. This is Monday evening. Are we seeing photogenic storms? I don't know. We're 3 days out. I think it looks pretty good. Time will tell. Let's head on into Tuesday. This is the day that I'm watching up here in central Illinois. Looking at maybe a couple of isolated storms, borderline supercell risk, maybe a tornado risk if we get some better moisture return up here. Not convinced on the tornado risk across Illinois on Tuesday, but I'm becoming more convinced that I am finally getting out and observing a couple of strong storms on Tuesday evening. We'll take this into Wednesday. We get our front stalled back here, stretching from the Ohio River all the way back into the southern plains. We get the next wave approaching. If we blow up a lot of convection on and north of that front with the upper level waves swinging in, that could keep that front pretty far south as we get into Wednesday and potentially even into Thursday. But Wednesday, I think somewhere in here. I'm very low confidence, but I think somewhere across Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, I think severe storms will be happening. Not all that convinced in the photogenic nature, not all that convinced in how focused it is, not convinced that we're talking about supercells and tornadoes. Just think we're looking at a broad risk for some strong storms across the south as we get into Wednesday. And then Thursday, big differences between the models on how this wave evolves. Looks like it's stalling out here on me again. There we go, getting into Thursday morning, midday Thursday, and then Thursday evening. This one we'll have to watch. This is another one it's 6 days out from the time I'm making this forecast video. There's just facts of life. I'm not going to be able to nail the confidence on this one, but I'm willing to bet that as Thursday approaches, we start talking about that one more and more, kind of as the Wednesday of this past week, probably looking at a high-end severe weather risk, probably covering a wide geographical area as we get into Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening. Now finally, I just want to jump in and take a look at some of the ensembles, kind of a way that I like to gauge my confidence on, how are these days setting up, where are they going to be focused, and should I have any confidence in them? Okay, so one more time, our areas to watch as we head through next week. Monday, Southern Plains, Oklahoma and Texas. Tuesday, we're looking at the mid-Mississippi Valley, probably the state of Illinois. Wednesday, somewhere across the south. And then Thursday, maybe looking at a higher end day across the Mid-South and Dixie Alley. We'll jump in, let's look at Monday. We're looking at the European ensemble spread here. There are actually 50 different ensemble members here. We're going to look at 1 through 25. I promise you 26 through 50, a similar solution here. So we're looking at instability, the forecast here, 7 p.m. on Monday. This is when we're watching the Southern Plains. And if you notice, just about every one of these, just about all of the, all 25, I don't know why I'm stumbling over words here. I had a theory here, just an aside. We're not spending so much time interacting personally with the pandemic going on. And someone told me that they're not being forced to use their vocabulary so much anymore and search for bigger words. So communicating, becoming more challenging as we actually talk out loud less and less. I'm finding that may be true here as I work from home and don't interact with people around the office quite so much. But something to look at here. We're talking about, looking at all these individual ensemble members here and seeing some agreement here between the placement of the instability at 7 p.m. on Monday. So this gives me pretty good confidence that we are likely looking at a dry line situation here with, probably doable instability with that wave kicking in across Oklahoma and Texas. We can look at the GFS and we see the same thing. Again, it's not jumping off the charts. We're not talking about, a high-end weather event, but I think that, we've got some consistency here when we look at the GFS ensemble members. Again, with a corridor of, instability across Oklahoma and Texas. The dry line, we know we've got that upper level wave coming in. We should have just enough support here to kick off a few storms, maybe a supercell risk on Monday along the dry line. We'll jump ahead and look at Tuesday. This is where we got a little lower confidence, but this is noon on Tuesday. I picked this because the instability falls off later in the day, but I just want to make sure that, midday, as we get to 1 p.m., that would be 18Z on Tuesday. Do we have an unstable environment across central Illinois with that wave kicking in? And it looks like more say yes than not, kind of along the Mississippi River, the states of Illinois and Missouri, which is where I would be watching. We flip it over, look at the GFS. Same thing. This is going to be a real marginal event. maybe even by literal sense, a marginal risk on Tuesday across the state of Illinois. Maybe a slight risk. Again, I'm watching it because I live so close. I also think it's very chaseable terrain, and that's also probably the best chance to get supercells, even if they are borderline. Maybe they're a little bit moisture starved as well, and maybe we're not talking about a tornado risk. It is March after all. We're blessed as it is with these waves coming in. I almost didn't start this series until later in the season because I was afraid I wouldn't have anything to talk about. So at least we've got these borderline days that we can kind of watch here and get some practice on. So Tuesday, I actually kind of like my chances of getting some strong storms across the state of Illinois. We look at Wednesday. This is when we're talking about the southern plains, somewhere across Texas, maybe into Arkansas and Louisiana. The potential for that front to be kind of reinforced further to the south. You see some pretty good consistency here with an unstable environment being, forecast across eastern Texas into maybe Louisiana and Arkansas. Some of these solutions have it a little bit further north, getting into Oklahoma. I would question that, of course, with the front and the potential for widespread convection with the next wave approaching early in the day on Wednesday. But we'll flip it over. Let's look at the GFS. Pretty similar picture here. Not a lot of agreement. You see a slightly different, look on each of these. You see consistency with an unstable environment existing, but there is a lot of difference here between how each of the frontal boundaries is going to look. Do we have a dry line set up here? Look, some of these down here at the bottom, a little more classic with the dry line pushing through central Texas and that big wave. That would be maybe a more focused supercell and tornado setup. But right now, I think just a broad area of potentially strong storms on Wednesday, kind of a messy setup. 5 days to go though. Plenty of time for that to become ironed out and maybe a more focused severe weather day. So, at the end of the day, I think that we can say that it's going to be the South. If it's going to happen on Wednesday, it's probably going to be East Texas. Probably not going to be one of the better places to chase. Probably not going to be, one of the higher end days here with a real classic supercell tornado threat. I would love to be wrong for the folks down there who want to observe that kind of thing. Obviously not for the residents here. I never would wish that on y'all. So here we go, Thursday. This is when we're talking about maybe a more high-end day from the Ohio River down to kind of the mid and lower Mississippi valleys. But again, we get 6 days out. You're going to be hard-pressed to find any day that's going to have a lot of consistency, or any model that's going to have a lot of consistency at that range. But again, when we look at that area here across the Mid-South, across Dixie Alley, pretty good confidence that we're going to have an unstable environment in this region, that we're going to have that wave sweeping through the region. And again, that we'll have something to work with there, and that's a rather broad unstable environment being forecast by some of these solutions. The GFS, not quite so optimistic about it. The GFS is maybe a little bit more progressive with some of those. You do see some ensemble members here, kind of in the bottom left, bottom right, where we've got a more unstable environment, but this is still way out there. 6 days. It's got a bit of a look, so I'm going to keep my eye on it. And I think if any day here over the next 7 is going to be a more widespread higher end day, I think that day would be Thursday. So that's what I've got for you. I think these videos are going to become more and more fun as we get deeper into the season. We're looking maybe at more nuanced severe weather risks and maybe higher end days, days that aren't so reliant on these big troughs swinging through, but that is what it takes in March, and hey, we got to get started somewhere. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. We'll go ahead and click back just and end with the regions that I'm watching here. Go ahead and just watch as we go through the week. We'll go ahead and talk about how I did as we get to next video, which will be coming out on Friday, March 26th, that would be. So have a wonderful week. Good luck to those of you in Oklahoma and Texas, perhaps on Monday and Wednesday. My fellow Illinois and Midwest storm chasers, hoping, fingers crossed, that we're looking at our first little outing on Tuesday afternoon and evening. And then Thursday, we'll have to watch evolve. That one's got my attention as a potential high-end, widespread severe weather day. Have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you next Friday.